Hello and welcome to Your Colorful Path with Charu. Today is a really special episode because I am in conversation with dearest Bonnie. Her testimonial with Dr. Joe Dispenza was one of the first stories that I watched on YouTube when I got into the work in 2021. And so when it was time for me to check on where are these fabulous people with these beautiful transformational healing stories now, I thought of Bonnie. And thankfully, she said yes to have a conversation with me. So welcome, Bonnie. It's a pleasure to get to talk to you. And I'm so excited. To start
Thank
things
you.
off, I would love for you to talk about your beautiful healing story. And for the audience, this testimonial is on YouTube and I will link it in the show notes. I want to get deep into the nitty gritties of what Bonnie did and how she healed a pretty incurable autoimmune disease she was diagnosed with. So, Bonnie, the stage is yours.
Uh, well, first, I want to say thank you so much, Charu, for reaching out and inviting me to be a guest on your podcast. I feel honored. I'm so passionate about this work and about this message that you are bringing to people. So I'm so in awe of your courage to create this podcast so that people can understand and know that this is possible, that
Yeah,
there's
thank
really so many possibilities for them in their life, especially when people are struggling.
you. Yeah.
So, to sum up my story, I was already a health and wellness coach before I had this autoimmune disease. I never expected anything like this to happen to me. I didn't have any genes in my family. There was no history of autoimmune or any kind of chronic illness.
Mm.
And so I never expected to be faced with something so scary. And so I was, living my life, a full life. I was a wife and mother of three boys, my own biological sons, and then two more bonus boys from my husband. And all of a sudden, I started noticing there was some stiffness going on in my legs when I was walking. And I started feeling my feet were really cold all the time. And I didn't understand what was happening. And I scheduled an appointment with my doctor. And it took a couple of weeks to get an appointment. And during those 2 weeks, I started noticing more and more symptoms to the point where I was just standing still the day before my appointment. And all of a sudden, I felt like I was about to fall, like I was losing my balance. And so when I went to the doctor, he said to me, after doing some testing and checking on what my capabilities were at the time, he said, "You need to get to the emergency room right away." And he said, "I think you have Guillain-Barré syndrome, or Guillain-Barre is what a lot of people call it." And so I immediately went to the hospital. They did some blood work and they did a lumbar puncture, and they basically diagnosed me with Guillain-Barre. And I was admitted. And that same day, I was using the restroom in the hospital and I was starting to stand up and I fell. And a nurse had to come in and lift me up. And they labeled me a fall risk from that point forward. And so that was the beginning of what felt like a nightmare.
Yeah. And
It
how
was
old were you at this time?
52.
And you were completely normal. So this really just came out of nowhere.
It came out of nowhere and it was just such a shock. I couldn't
Yeah.
believe that this was happening to me. But at the same time, I had already done a lot of personal development in my life. I used to go to Tony Robbins events. I was actually a crew member. And
Mm.
so that phrase kept ringing in my ears that this is happening for me, not to me. Even though it
Mm.
was so frightening, I kept reminding myself that I know this is happening for me and that there's a lesson that's supposed to be learned from this and I'm going to learn it. And so I had never heard of Dr. Joe Dispenza at this point in
Mm.
time. And so I wound up having 6 hospital stays. I kept relapsing. Every time I wound up receiving a treatment called plasmapheresis or plasma exchange. And it was an 11 or 13-day process where they took all of the blood out of my body and they
Mm.
took the plasma. They removed the plasma out of my blood because that's where the antibodies are stored. And then they replaced it with synthetic plasma and reinserted it back into my body. So that process in itself was very scary. And I had to have that done 5 of the 6 hospital stays. It would bring me a little bit of strength, but it was only temporary. And there were times where I would return home after those like 2 week stays in the hospital. And within a couple of days, I relapsed one of the times. And each of the times I relapsed, it got worse and worse. So my symptoms got worse. And there was a time where I wasn't even able to stand. Like I couldn't hold any weight on my legs at all. I had to be carried to the bathroom. So it was just a very frightening experience. And then, of course, the most frightening part was when the doctors were telling me that there was no cure.
Yeah, of course.
And so during my second hospital stay, I had a Tony Robbins Facebook friend reach out to me on Facebook Messenger and asked me if I ever heard of of Dr. Joe Dispenza. And
Mm,
I said, no, I never heard of him. So he sent me a couple of his interviews. And as soon as I heard Dr. Joe speak, I immediately knew that this was it. This
yeah.
was what I was meant to learn. And this was how I'm going to heal myself. So it was a process. And of course, it was never easy. You know, it was always like there was things happening where I would relapse or people would come in and tell me again that there's no cure. Or, there were many triggers, especially my loved ones, my mom. I'm going to start getting all emotional.
Yeah.
My mom and my sons would have fear in their eyes, and that would cause me to then feel fear. But each time I felt the fear, I would bring myself back. And I would remind
Mm,
myself that just because they are being fed this information that their mom, is like this now and there's no cure, doesn't mean that it's true because I believe something different. And that's not my story. So I had shared a
powerful.
post on my Facebook page recently with a detail about how one of my sons was in the hospital with me and he was looking at me and saying, Mom, what's going to happen? He had all this fear in his eyes. And I immediately said, well, I'm going to heal myself. That's what's going to happen. And so that was such a feeling of determination that there is no other option. This is what's happening. I'm healing myself. And so each time I would relapse, of course, it brought up a lot of fear and not only about, will I ever heal, but also having to go through it all again, having to go back to the hospital and have the catheter put in my neck, which was a huge deal that I gave me a lot of anxiety. But I wound up just bringing myself back using the work of Dr. Joe Dispenza and knowing that this is really what my truth is, that this is happening for me so that I can understand who I've been being in my life and shift my beliefs, shift my state of being. Because as he says, our thoughts and our feelings create our state of being, and our state of being is what determines our energetic frequency. So I was living in a low vibration frequency because I recognized when I was doing the work that I had been living in a state of fear, of worry, of, focusing on worst case scenarios and living in a state of
Mm,
scarcity, worried about things that I couldn't control, like what my boys, if I felt like they were making a decision that wasn't in their best interest or doing things that I didn't agree with or anything like that, it would make me feel like now it's my job to fix it.
yeah. Yeah. But
So,
that's
yeah.
that's pretty powerful though, Bonnie, because I think that is the moment of change. It's so inspiring for me to hear this from you because when you're in the middle of a health crisis, whether it's mental, emotional, or physical, I think it's so easy to latch on to fear and it's so easy to feel like just listening to the voices that are outside of you, which may be coming from their best place, but they're coming from a place of fear, or they're coming from a
Mhm,
place of medicine, which in our Western world definitely puts you in a place of fear and anxiety. And to
mhm,
be surrounded by those voices and still being able to hold your own and to make that choice that know I am healing, I
Mhm.
think is so powerful. I am curious, like, what, looking back, was it just the self reflection that comes from just doing the work, getting to understand yourself? Was there something more to this that you were able to make that choice? What do you think is the differentiator? What made you choose the hope over the hopelessness?
Yes. Well, one thing I do need to share is that I've always had this very deep connection to the divine, to God.
Mm.
And it's not religious, it's a personal relationship that I just naturally always had since I was a young girl, ever since I can remember. And I had this strong sense of faith that this is happening for me, that this is not going to be the end of my story, and that I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to delve deep within myself in order to change my inner environment, my vibrational frequency, because that's really what everything is creates our vibrational frequency is the determining factor that creates everything in our entire lives, our whole reality, all of the circumstances of our life, our relationships, our financial situation, our health. And I know this to be true. You know, this is how I healed myself, but this is also how I help others to heal themselves as well, because that's my passion now. I
Yeah.
mean, it's, what I live for now.
Yeah.
So when you ask what it really was this firm belief and this dedication and commitment to this work. I
Mm.
didn't just dabble in it. It wasn't like it was something that I just meditated and then the rest of the day I was my normal self. Because that's what I
Yeah.
feel like a lot of people think, that as long as they meditate, then they're doing the work. And that's
Yes.
not really true at all. That's actually the furthest thing from the truth, because meditation is a great tool and it's a powerful tool, but
Yeah.
that's not all that this work consists of. Meditation helps us to bring ourselves to raise our consciousness, which is really what I'm all about, because I find that most people who come to me and, are sharing that they've been doing the work for so long, but they haven't healed themselves. I've coined the term, it's because of consciousness captivity, because they're
Ah,
still trying to change themselves from the same level of mind as the one that caused the problem.
oh, I love that. That is
Thank you.
that's amazing. I love that. Consciousness captivity.
Yeah.
It's great.
And
So it's like
so
you're captive to the same state of consciousness that
that's
created the
right.
problem. So you can't really jump to the one that will help you solve the problem.
Exactly. Exactly. We can't change our life until we change who we're being, and we
Yeah.
can't change who we're being from the same level of mind.
Yeah.
So that is what I do in my program, is I help people to raise their consciousness and become a different version of themselves.
You went through the whole time in the hospital, multiple hospitals, and you ended up really being free of this diagnosis and its
Yeah.
symptoms and everything. And I remember hearing in your testimonial how you said it. And you said, and I'm paraphrasing here, but you said, I was in the hospital doing meditations when it was not convenient. Like you were trying to fool the nurses to sort of just pretend that you're asleep, but you were really doing your meditations. And I
Mhm.
sensed in you this sort of determination, like you said, of not giving in to the diagnosis or the wording or the labeling that often comes from,
Mhm.
these disorders. And I thought that was really smart and powerful that you blocked certain information that you knew would become a belief if you gave into it too much.
Yes.
Right? So
Yes.
that I thought that was amazing. And the other thing you said was that I was really moved by was you saying that there were meditations where I was deeply, profoundly grateful and just
Mm.
tears of gratitude in the hospital that I'm healed. And
Yes.
I want you to speak about that because I know a lot of people
Sure.
that are struggling with very tough situations physically. And
Mhm.
I find that we can get caught up in the story of pain we can get caught up in the
Mhm.
story of the disorder and how hard it is and how
Mhm.
difficult and
Mhm.
how incurable. And I'm
Yeah.
sure you dealt with that and we know you've overcome it. But what was that like, choosing gratitude? Or was it just an after effect of so much meditation that you had done for yourself?
So, first, I just want to make mention that my diagnosis was actually changed. It was not Guillain-Barré syndrome. The chronic version of that is basically they changed my diagnosis to the chronic version, which is called CIDP, which stands for chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy. So it's a
Mm,
mouthful.
yeah.
And so let me start that. I'm going to say that again so you can edit the first part out. So it's chronic inflammatory demyelinating polyneuropathy. It took a
Mm,
while to be able to say that.
that's amazing.
Um, but that's the chronic version of it. And
Mm,
you're right. It is absolutely the stories that we start to believe about our condition and ourselves and identifying with the condition, believing the doctors when they tell us this is what's going to happen. Like they tell us the way it's going to go. And
mm,
that at this point in time, whenever I hear a doctor telling a patient how it's going to go for them, it infuriates me because they can't tell anybody else what their story is going to be. And
mm.
so it really does wind up causing people to identify with their condition. And so I've worked with many people who had been identifying with it because most people do. They believe the doctors, they believe Google when they read that, this is what they're to expect.
Yeah,
Or, if Google says there's no cure, then they immediately lose hope that
yeah,
it's possible for them to heal themselves. And so our beliefs truly are the program of what causes the reality in our lives.
yeah,
So when we take in someone else's belief about our life and about what's going to happen to us, then it puts us in a place of being powerless. And yet we have so much power, more power than anyone has been told. Nobody tells us because nobody understands our power. But
yeah,
as we're progressing in this world today, when you're following people like Dr. Joe Dispenza, Greg Braden, Bruce Lipton, you start to realize that that was all because nobody realized it. But now we're learning that we really do have so
yeah,
much power to
yeah.
create.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah.
that's the magic of getting into something like meditation because it opens you up to a part of you. I say meditation is the most effective tool for me to take the human in me to go and have a meeting with the divine in me.
Yes. Yes.
Because we have both, and they're both
Hmm.
supposed to talk to each other the whole time, but for some
Right.
reason, we have been brainwashed to sort of only go with the intellect, with the
Right.
mind, with the analysis. We forget the divine. We forget our intuition, that
Yes.
inner knowing. And so, yes, we can mindfully bring it back, but I don't think anything is as effective and deep as a
Hmm.
meditation
Hmm.
to really have that meeting. And the wonderful side effect of it is that once you taste it, you can never untaste it. I
Yes.
don't even know if
Well,
that's a word.
I understand exactly what you mean. And once, because you're right, we have been brainwashed to live in a state of fear. We've
Yeah.
been brainwashed to think that we are powerless, that we have to just be this passive bystander in our own life and just deal with whatever life brings us.
Yeah.
There are circumstances that come to us in our life, and we're constantly focused in our mind about what do I have to prepare for? What do I have to protect myself from? What do I need to do in order to make this happen? And what do I need to be aware of that's going to keep me safe? And so when we're constantly living in our mind, then there's no place for the divine. There's no place for miracles to show up in our life. because the only time that miracles show up is when we're being fully present. And that's why
Yeah.
presence is a huge part of this work. In fact, presence is the answer. And
Yeah.
that's how I brought myself to raise my consciousness and become aware of my own program, my conditioned program that we all have, this
Yeah.
conditioning that's been causing us to view ourselves as who have been viewing ourselves, and identifying ourselves as that throughout our life, but that also makes us react to things in a very personal way because we take
Mm.
things personally, we think things are about us, and it's mostly coming from a state of
Mhm.
lack and a state of being unsafe or unworthy. And so all of the conditioning that we've gone through in our lives is what needs to be free. We need to free ourselves from that conditioning in order to step into our greatest potential.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better. This is so much in alignment with direct experience. I think that's why so many people continue to join the work and join Dr. Joe Dispenza's work too, because when you start experiencing life from that new lens,
Mhm.
you start to put it together for yourself that, oh, yeah, what he said was true. What I heard in that testimony, what they overcame and how their life became is true. And it's not because you're just believing what someone is saying, it's because
Mhm.
you get to experience it yourself.
Yes.
And
And
that
you see
is
someone
most,
else. Yeah.
yeah, that is the most empowering thing, especially today with so much stuff with organized religion. I think direct experience is missing.
Yes. Yes. And when you see that someone else has done it, then it gives you permission to believe that you can do it too.
Yeah.
And it's true, we all can do it.
Yeah.
We really can. So,
Yeah.
when you were talking about meditation, the reason I had brought up presence is because presence is part of the meditation process. I mean, that's the whole point of meditating is bringing ourselves to the present moment. And the
Yeah.
more that we train ourselves to be able to do that, the more that we start to become aware of things that we were not aware of previously. So there
Yeah.
are many people who think that, oh, I'm not good at meditating. Meditation is not for me. And that's because that's normal. I mean, nobody is good at meditating when they first start. It's
Yeah,
just
how
like
was it for
anything
you?
else. It's the same. It was the same. When I first started meditating, my mind was constantly going. I was still thinking of things.
Yeah.
But because of my situation, I wasn't giving up on meditation. And that's the thing is challenge is what causes you to be so convicted to not give up because you are forced to go within. Now, of course, there's another path that people sometimes choose, and that's to identify with their challenge. And then that
Yeah.
causes them to just continue to go in that spiral down that rabbit hole, which could have
Yeah.
very easily happened if I didn't believe, if I didn't have that level of faith that this was not my story. And if I believed the doctors, then I probably wouldn't be walking right now.
That's very true, and I think I 100% agree. If I look back at my own journey, it was heartbreak and a terrible divorce in 2020, in the middle of COVID, that brought me to the work,
Hmm.
and I was suicidal for the first time in my life.
Mm,
Like, I I almost ended my life. And that moment, in that moment, just having a mystical experience when I didn't even know what a mystical experience was, and my higher
mm,
self telling me this is not the end, and me
yes.
saying, well, then show me the way, because I was desperate.
Wow.
And it brought me to Joe Dispenza's work, and it brought me to the work in a way that I was so challenged at that time.
Mhm.
Everything that my mind had constructed, my life, my marriage, who I was without that relationship, everything, right, had been shattered. And
Yes.
at that time, it was really painful.
Mhm.
But now I see the immense beauty of it, because if I had not been shattering my worldview that way, I would
Mhm.
not have gone all in the work. I would not have.
Yes, and
I
you
would have done
became a
it
different
half-heartedly.
version. Right, and you became a different version of yourself in the
Yes.
process. Because before, when you were married, most likely you were identifying with being a wife, being part of this partnership, and maybe even putting up with things that your higher self didn't, wasn't aligned with, perhaps. And so when we're living in what I call it, when we're living small, when we're accepting things in our life, whether it be a dysfunctional relationship or one that we're not feeling, satisfied, or feeling that it's something that we feel good about being in, how we're being treated or how we're feeling in the relationship, or when we're dealing with a physical health challenge or a mental health challenge, or
Yeah.
even lack and scarcity in our finances.
Yeah.
Any challenge that's going on in our life is a sign that we are settling in our life, that we're not believing in ourselves, that we're not, that we're clinging to something because we're feeling unsafe. And the
Yeah.
challenge itself is there in order to show us that we are so much more than that. When we choose to go within and to do this deep work, to rise above the challenge winds up becoming our greatest gift.
Well said, Bonnie.
Mm.
And that is so true too. I mean, now I'm sure that when you look back, like, what's your perspective on the diagnosis? Because the diagnosis doesn't exist anymore. You're
Mhm.
healed and
Mhm.
you've packed it up and sent it its own way.
I'm so grateful for it. I'm so incredibly grateful for it. And in fact, when you mentioned earlier that I forgot to respond to, when you were referring to the time in the hospital that you heard me in my testimonial that I shared, that I was in tears of gratitude. This is the gratitude. I was connecting to my future self. And that's what is so possible for all of us.
I have goosebumps.
Yes, that's a sign for sure. But yeah, while I was in the hospital and I was just full on doing the work and feeling into my healed self and feeling how I'm going to feel when I'm able to walk again, when I'm able to dance again. Oh my gosh, it brought me to tears in
Yeah.
such joy, the joy
Yeah.
that I felt and the
Yeah.
gratitude that I felt. So it's bringing yourself to that place ahead of the healing.
Yeah.
We have to go first.
Yeah.
We have to raise our consciousness enough where we can bring ourselves to that knowing that I'm going to heal and feeling into how that's going to feel now, because that emotion is that calling card to the universe that's going to call that in.
Yeah. And you're doing it before the healing has happened. Um, so for anyone who listening and has a health situation that has been termed incurable, not fixable, blah, 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 lots of labels,
Mhm.
they are doing the work or they're doing a certain type of meditation and they are constantly checking in on what's the progress of the
Yeah.
disease. What would you say to them to sort of do or not do based on your own experience with this?
Yeah, I would say stop checking in. You can't continue to check in because by checking in, you are now being in a state of lack because you're looking to see if the healing has happened or is happening. And by even looking for it means that you don't have it. So you're not
Mm,
in alignment with the vibration of your healing when you're having to look for it. So that's
yeah.
the first thing is stop looking for it, just trusting the process and believing in your healing, knowing that it's about this journey. Like this journey is the purpose for the challenge. So focusing
Mm,
on the purpose instead of the outcome or the result that you want. Just focusing on the journey each day, making each day a new opportunity to practice being present even more, to
mm.
raising your consciousness even more, and being in the energy of your future self even more.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Bonnie. I love that. I actually personally, I feel like I needed to hear that because I am very results oriented and sometimes I can be like a dog with the bone. And
Yeah.
so it becomes all about the outcome. And then I forget the path I'm on. And I think when that happens, for me, it shows up as burnout. It shows up as me not taking care of my body or my needs or my desires. And I
Mhm.
think when you said, let it be about the journey and not so
Mhm.
much about the destination, was reflecting like that's something I need to do too. Think,
Yes, most people do,
yeah,
because most people are so goal focused, focused on
yeah,
what they are wanting to achieve, instead
yeah,
of really focusing on each day, the present moment, what we're able to do right now. I'm able to raise my vibration even when going through incurable, which I don't believe anything is incurable, challenge, that you still have things to be grateful for. You
yeah,
still have, even when you're wanting something that you don't have right now, whether it be, an income or a relationship or whatever that is, you can still focus on raising your vibration to feel as though you already have it, and by doing that, focusing on what you're already grateful for right now in this very moment.
yeah. And gratitude, I think, opens you up in a way that you can't fully fathom. And it's not a shallow practice. It's not just being like, okay, yeah, I am grateful for this and that. It's really feeling grateful for having what you have. Because I've made that distinction that sometimes I would just fake gratitude things like, yeah,
Yes.
I'm grateful for it. I'm grateful for my body. But then I corrected myself. Like, I am really grateful for my body. I have body parts that are working, that are like, if I missed my one finger, I would really
Mhm.
miss it. That's
Exactly.
gratitude. Like, I'm grateful that you exist. And when I made that change, I think it really brings me back to a place of humility and even more gratitude. And then I feel okay with the problem that is at hand. And
Yeah.
then I think that's I figured out is the state change in the state of your consciousness. Because now you've gone from complaining to gratitude to somewhere higher where you can now see a different point of view. But yeah,
Yes. Well,
those are
Dr.
beautiful.
Joe says gratitude is the ultimate state of receivership, which is
Yes.
absolutely true.
Yeah.
And I've done some meditations and some videos about how there are so many levels of gratitude. There's so many
Mm.
levels of everything. There's levels of consciousness, there's levels of presence, and there's levels of belief
Yeah.
in our healing. There's levels. So many people have a hard time truly believing in their healing, especially when the symptoms come up, especially when they go to a doctor. It's very difficult to keep your belief in check when you have a doctor telling you so emphatically that this is what to expect, this is what's happening,
Mm.
especially when there's labs involved and evidence. But we have evidence too that many people just don't recognize as evidence. When things happen in our life, many times we have a tendency of just, poo-pooing it, or our ego comes in and says, "Oh, no, that would have happened to anyone," or "That's just a fluke." Like when we start to feel that we're improving in an area,
Yeah.
we don't really believe it. So we're
Yeah.
so quick to believe other people when they're telling us scary things, but we're not so quick to believe when miracles are actually happening, and we kind of just disregard it,
Yeah.
because we have the ego that's constantly feeding us all those thoughts that we have a tendency to accept and believe, and that's what keeps us stuck.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think that's where the mind, whenever it's over engaged, then it's just having a meeting with itself, and the divine has not been invited. So I'm always
Yeah.
like telling myself, Charo, did you invite the divine to this meeting, or are you just having it between you and your mind?
Right.
Because then it's like the anxiety spirals, it's the fear voice, it's the intellect
Mm.
analysis paralysis. But then when you when you can meditate in that state, really hit pause on all
Mhm.
else, go to that state, get back in touch with your highest self. I do think that it makes a tremendous difference in your decision making and how big the problem looks versus how big you are. So lots of ripple effects from meditation, which is also something I wanted to ask you because you have a powerful story. You have healed something that was really difficult and it has been a few years. And I wanted to know, what do you think are the effects of meditation in your life? Because, and why I ask this is because
Mhm.
sometimes people think that, oh, you only need to meditate if you have a health issue, right?
Mm.
And I always am like, no, it's one entry into this world, but then it has ripple effects. Do you feel like your life has really shown change in other areas just because of your
Oh my god.
practices?
This is a great question. I'm so glad you asked because since like my health challenge, like I said, was the catalyst to me becoming a different version of myself.
Mm,
And since I've healed myself, it has continued, this work has continued to grow in my life as my biggest passion of helping others. And for myself, I know that it has totally changed. It continues to totally change me on a
mm,
visceral level because I didn't only have a health challenge, I had other challenges too. And I'm working, actually, one of them was a financial challenge. I think
mm,
I shared on stage with Dr. Joe that I was gifted a full scholarship to the event because I wasn't able to afford it at that
mm.
time.
Yeah.
And even with, I'm a college graduate. I, I'm totally passionate. I'm nationally board certified as a health and wellness coach. And I was struggling.
Mm,
I was struggling to make ends meet. And so I used this work in order to become abundant. I was already in the abundant energy. And
mm.
again, it's not something that we can just snap our fingers and do.
Yeah.
I feel for most people, they really need support and guidance. So it's
Mm,
not so much just about meditating. In fact, it's mostly about the rest of the time. So when I'm not meditating, I'm living my life constantly by noticing, if I'm not being present, especially when triggers happen
mm.
and using those triggers as my guides,
Yeah.
using those triggers to recognize what's going on with me and how did I interpret this situation and where is that coming from? And then realizing how I was viewing myself. Because when we shift the way that we view ourselves into another version of our higher self, basically, when we shift from viewing ourselves as the small me into my higher self, who already has everything that I want, has the life that I want, then you're feeling into that energy. So for
Yeah.
most people, it really does take ongoing, constant support and guidance because it's so easy for the conditioned program to keep taking over. I mean, that's how we've been trained is to listen to the mind, believe our thoughts. And those thoughts are continuing to keep us stuck in that same place of who we've been being in our life. So most people really do need something to like a mentor or a coach to help them to recognize when there's a conditioned program going on that they're just not seeing. It might take someone else to, I use the analogy of, if you were born in a family who wears all green glasses and you see everything as green, because that's the conditioned program of that family, then it takes someone outside of you to show you, hey, that's not really green. That can be viewed as white too, and if you don't have someone showing you that, and it's a really deep seated program that you fully believe and don't even recognize as being something that can be viewed as something else, then it really is helpful to have someone show you that.
Yeah. And you're a health and wellness coach. And I mean, I'm sure it's fantastic to be coached by you because you have walked the talk. You have, you're the 4 minute mile. So I'm sure it's transformative experience for people to work with you. And for our listeners who may want to work with you, what's the best way to find you? What's your website, or how should they contact you?
Sure. Well, I have a website called reinventyourselfwithbonnie.com.
Yeah.
That's That actually, that was the name of my business even before my health challenge. I was already
Mm,
passionate about helping people to reinvent themselves, but now I do it on a much deeper level
mm.
because of my experience and what I've been through. I can now lead people down this path of doing the deep inner work. And I have a program called Overcome to Become that
Oh,
is my
fantastic.
baby. Yeah. So yes, I don't accept everyone into the program. So
Yeah.
someone would need to contact me and then we could schedule a complimentary call, a discovery Zoom call and connect and see if I could, I'm 100% confident that I can help them. And then second, if they would be a good fit in the program, because I'm very protective over the energy in my program. But all of my clients are my overcomers and they are totally embedded in my heart. They become, just my priority.
Yeah.
And I just love helping them to overcome their own, situations and beliefs and perspectives and all of that. But I'm also on Facebook. I'm on Facebook a lot. So they can find me at Bonnie Sharf Provost. And yeah, that's the best way to find me, either my website or my email, reinvent yourself with Bonnie at gmail.com.
I will link all of that in our show notes. And that would be, I wanted to say before when you were talking, the names that you've come up with are so good and you call your community overcomers. I'm absolutely inspired by that. That's really cool.
Thank you. Thank
That's
you. And
really
people
cool.
join my program not only if they have a health challenge. I
Mm.
have people in my program who might not necessarily be struggling health wise, but just realize that they're not living at their full potential, that they
Yeah,
would like financial abundance or they would like to find their true love. So for the most part, I have most people who come to me with health challenges, but that's not the only reason people join my program.
that's fantastic. I think that's great
Mm.
to know because there are so many challenges that we're all facing. And I think it's great to have support from somebody who has, like I said, walked the talk, they've done it, they've been through it. And the best benefit of that is that you know that they really get it. And you know that just the fact that they exist means that you can get there too. And that is
Yeah.
super powerful about your story, Bonnie. I love
Well,
it.
thank you. Thank you so much, Charu. It's been such a pleasure connecting with you.
Yeah, we're almost on time, but I wanted to ask you a quick fun question. Let's bust some myths about meditation. What do you think are some myths related to healing?
One, you do not have to be at an event to heal yourself. You don't have to go to a live Dr. Joe retreat in order to heal
Yeah.
yourself. Many people believe that they do. And I did it before I ever stepped foot at a live retreat. I thought I was going to have to be in a retreat to heal myself when I was in the hospital. And I manifested it because after I healed myself is when I was a recipient of a full scholarship. And I was blown away that that I actually manifested that. And then when I went there and was invited to meet him backstage and get on stage and share my testimonial, it all was so divine. I know that it wasn't just me, it was being divinely sent to the event. It was just really out of this world. So you don't have to go to an event to heal yourself is number 1.
That's a good one.
Yes. Number 2 is you don't have to have an out of body experience or any kind of convulsions or a pineal gland orgasm. You don't have to have any of those things in order to heal
Yeah.
yourself. Many
Yeah.
people think that they do. You don't
Yeah.
have to have any of
It
those,
doesn't have to be
real.
dramatic,
Right. No,
right? Yeah.
exactly. In fact, I don't know the stories, after people have spontaneously healed, but I've heard that when people spontaneously heal at an event, it doesn't always last. And that's because when they go back home, they're going home to the same environment, the same circumstances, the same people. And so that old energy returns. That's why having someone to support you on a long term basis not just for a week, but someone who's going to be there to guide you and be there when the triggers come up and when you start to get lost and when you start to feel like, well, I'm just not good at this. I must not be doing it right. Maybe it's just useless for me. It's just not working for me. Maybe my condition is too far gone. All of those thoughts are normal because that's what most people think when they've been doing the work, but they're not seeing the results. But to me, what that says is you need to
Yeah.
go deeper in doing the work.
Amazing. Both those myths are actually quite popular. I will say from being in the community for the last 4 years, those are two that I often see, especially like someone who's just getting into the work or is just getting into this whole world of spirituality. It feels so important to go to a retreat, and I also have told people like most of my stuff happened before I even went to a retreat right in my bedroom, meditating morning and evening and just making leaps. And the second part that you said also is very true, that like, let's not compare the speed at which it happens for someone else or me or this or that. But for me, everything happened really slow in my
Mhm.
head. But yet, I'm going to just let this fire
Yes.
truck pass. Just today, right? This never
Yeah.
happens. But today, all the fires will
All
go
the
out.
things are happening.
And I was going to say, for me, everything happened really slow in my
Mhm.
head because of the divorce, I had so much emotional and mental anguish that it led to an immense amount of inner conflict, I think, in my body. I couldn't eat anything. There were so many allergies. I had so many issues, and being completely healthy to that. And then
Mhm.
it took me a long time of slow incremental change to do this. But when I would go to the retreats, all my problems would be gone. But when I got back to New York, where I was living at the time, they would slowly come back, and I put it
Right.
together. So they can go away because I was in a very high energy state, but
Mhm.
I'm not right now. So why am I not in
Mm.
that high energy state? Let's ask ourselves that. And that's how
Yes.
I started back clicking and okay, so that's what I'm feeling. And that's the feeling that I was not feeling there. So I guess I have to work on this feeling. It just took its own sweet time,
Mhm.
but it was permanent. I mean, I have not had any of those allergies ever since I healed those.
Yay. Wonderful. Great
Right?
job, Charu.
Yeah.
You did wonderful work.
And
Excellent.
it felt really slow. But now that I look back, I'm like, it was really fast, actually.
Yeah. Yeah. It feels slow while you're going through it
Yeah.
because each moment of each day, you're just totally focused on wanting to heal, right? Or wanting to rise above
Feel better.
whichever challenge it is. Yeah. And yet, while you're doing it, that's the journey.
Yeah.
It's the journey. And yet, so many people don't stay with it because they tell themselves and they believe that they must not be doing it right, or they're not good at it, or it's just not working for them. So, great job at staying with it. That really does take a lot of
Yeah.
commitment and determination for sure.
Yes. Well, life has really changed for both of us because we decided to dive into this work
Oh, yeah.
and meditate, but also become new people. And we're on time. So I just wanted to take a moment to really thank you for bringing your beautiful, profound story that touched me when I first got in, and it
Mm,
continues to touch me now. And it makes me so inspired to see that you have taken it on and made it your life's mission, your purpose. And it's fantastic. And I think a lot of
mm.
people will benefit from having someone like you at their side while they navigate many challenges. So, thank you so
Thank you.
much for accepting and coming and being so open with your story and sharing some amazing things. You want to say
Oh,
something to round off our call, please do.
Well, it has been my pleasure. I really can't think of any place I would rather be. I love sharing this message, and I feel like the work that you're doing is so important to be putting this message out there for people to understand that this really is possible for them. So, thank you for all the work that you're doing and sharing that this is the truth. Even though people might have a hard time believing it, hearing you and the guests that you bring on is going to really instill in people's minds that it is possible for them.
Yeah,
So thank you.
that is my intention. If you're somewhere thinking this is the end, leave us when we say it is not the end. There is an answer and you can find it.
Not only is there a solution, but that solution is your freedom. This challenge that you're experiencing right now is only temporary, and there's a whole nother world on the other side of you doing this work and discovering who you really are.
If this episode moved something in you, please hit the follow button. Please leave a review, a star rating for us. It really matters to me to know how you feel about things. I hope you continue to walk this colorful path with me. You can reach me anytime through Divine Amuleto, my Instagram account. That's where I share the tools, practices, and fine jewelry that supports this journey of transformation. So do check it out. Thank you for being here. Until next time, may you keep listening to the wisdom within.